We're only inviting you out of pity, so don't stay long and don't get in the way of our real guests. Those were the exact words my own daughter Olivia said to me on the doorstep of their brand new Chicago apartment last Thanksgiving evening. I looked her straight in the eyes, gave the smallest, calmest smile I could manage, turned on my heel, and walked back to my car without one word or one tear. They truly believed they had won. They thought I was just the tired, lonely old woman who would swallow every insult with a nod and a thank you. 2 weeks later, the bank notifications started pouring in. The phone wouldn't stop ringing, and every single thing they had built on my name and my money came crashing down around them in flames. But this story didn't start with revenge. It started with 35 years of unconditional love they slowly, deliberately forgot ever existed. Every skipped meal, every double shift, every Christmas morning I worked so she could have the one present she really wanted. It all felt worth it the day she walked across that stage in her cap and gown, and I stood in the audience crying like a complete fool. Then Ryan walked into our lives. They met 4 years ago at a company retreat in Bend, Oregon. He was tall, polished, always dressed like he had just stepped off a yacht. And from the very first family dinner I hosted, I felt ice behind that perfect, practiced smile. It wasn't mother-in-law jealousy talking. It was the way he looked at me like I was a piece of old furniture that would eventually be hauled to the curb. At first, it was little digs wrapped in jokes. "Oh, Megan, you're so old school with your recipes." "Don't worry about cooking, Mom. We'll just order in. You rest those tired hands." As if I were already useless. Olivia never once corrected him, never once defended me. She would just laugh nervously and change the subject fast. Then came the slow, deliberate erasures from their life. The first Easter after their wedding, they threw a huge brunch with Ryan's parents, his 3 sisters, his cousins, 22 people around a long farmhouse table I saw on Instagram the very next morning. 22 place settings. I wasn't one of them. When I asked Olivia about it the next day, She said, "It was just a small thing, Mom, very last minute. That table had been reserved 3 months in advance. I know because I saw the planning group chat she accidentally left me in before quietly removing me." My 65th birthday came and went in total silence. Not a call, not a text, not even a Facebook post. I sat by the phone like a complete fool until midnight. Then at 12:07 a.m., I finally got a message. "Sorry, Mom, totally slipped our minds. Happy birthday." It slipped their minds. The woman who gave up her entire youth, her health, her dreams so her daughter could have everything, simply slipped their minds. Little by little, I became invisible. They stopped asking my opinion on anything. When I offered to come visit, Olivia always had an excuse. Migraine, deadline, girls' trip to Vegas. I kept showing up anyway, arms full of Tupperware, homemade lasagna with the ricotta she loved, apple pie with the lattice crust, the chocolate chip cookies she used to beg for as a child. "We're doing keto now, Mom. We already ate. Save it for yourself, really." Until the night of Ryan's 34th birthday party. I arrived at 7 sharp with the triple-layer red velvet cake I had baked from scratch. The exact cake Olivia used to say was the best cake on planet Earth. The condo was glowing, music thumping, laughter spilling out onto the hallway. Olivia opened the door in a sleek black cocktail dress, hair and makeup flawless, like she belonged on a magazine cover. She looked me up and down like I was a Jehovah's Witness selling pamphlets. "Mom," she sighed, loud enough for the guests behind her to hear, "Ryan felt bad and told me to invite you this morning." I could see at least 30 people inside. Ryan's coworkers, his entire family. Silver balloons that said 34 and fabulous. Catered trays from the expensive place downtown. Champagne flutes catching the light. And then Olivia said the words I will carry to my grave. "We're only inviting you out of pity, so don't stay long and don't get in the way of our real guests." The hallway went completely silent. I felt every pair of eyes land on me. I looked past her shoulder. Ryan was standing there, champagne in hand, watching the scene with a tiny smirk. Our eyes locked for half a second. I waited for my daughter to say something, anything, to tell Ryan to shut up, to pull me inside, to act like I belonged. She looked away and kept chatting with her friends. That was the exact moment the last thread of hope I had been clinging to for years snapped clean in two. I handed Olivia the cake, said in the calmest voice I could find, "Happy birthday, Ryan," turned around and walked back to the elevator with my head high and my spine straight. In the mirrored walls of the elevator, I caught my reflection. Gray hair in a neat bun, simple navy dress I had ironed twice that morning, looking every bit the tired old woman they had decided I was. But something brand new was burning behind my eyes, cold, clear, and unstoppable. I drove the 2 hours home to my little 2-bedroom condo in West Seattle in total silence. No radio, no tears, just the orange streetlights sliding across the windshield while those words played on repeat. Out of pity. I sat on my couch in the dark with only the corner lamp on and let every single memory flood back in because I needed to understand how I had let this happen. I thought of my own mother, Ruth, who passed 15 years ago. She cleaned other people's houses 6 days a week so I could finish high school. She used to say, "Megan, a woman who respects herself never begs for a seat at someone else's table. She builds her own damn table." That night, for the first time in my life, I finally understood exactly what she meant. I went to the bedroom closet and pulled down the cardboard box I had been avoiding for nearly 2 years. Inside were all the documents Olivia and Ryan had asked me to sign over and over again. Just routine paperwork, Mom. Helps us get better rates, Mom. You don't even have to read it, Mom. Just trust me. I spread every page across the bed and read under the lamp until 4 in the morning, line by line, clause by clause, my hands shaking harder with every page. What I discovered turned my stomach inside out. 1. I was the full guarantor and co-signer with joint and several liability on their $380,000 Chicago apartment signed 8 months earlier. If they stopped paying, the bank could come after everything I owned: my pension, my savings, Mom's rental house. 2. I had signed a notarized power of attorney that gave Ryan unlimited access to my credit history and the right to borrow against my name for future financial transactions. 3. The joint account I opened 2 years ago for emergencies and into which I deposited $800 every month from my pension and the rent from Mom's old house had been drained to zero every 30 days. Designer purses, weekends in Napa, new furniture, private Pilates classes, all of it. Attached bank statements proved it. I sat on the edge of the bed, the papers trembling in my hands, not from fear, from rage. They had used me, manipulated me, turned me into their personal cash machine while treating me like trash. And the worst part? They had done it with my consent because I signed without reading. I trusted. I was naive. I looked at the clock. Past midnight. Outside, everything was silent. I got up and walked to the kitchen. I made strong coffee, even though I knew I wouldn't sleep anyway. I poured a cup and sat at the small dining table with all the documents in front of me. And then I started thinking coldly, methodically, like I never had before. If I was the guarantor for that condo, I had legal rights over the contract. If I was a joint holder on the bank account, I could move the money however I wanted. If they had used my name without explaining the real consequences, that was breach of trust, maybe even fraud. I picked up my phone and started searching. Guarantor laws, co-signer rights, how to revoke bank authorizations, how to remove your name from mortgages. I read until 4 a.m., taking notes, highlighting key parts, building a plan in my head. When the sun rose through the kitchen window, I knew exactly what I was going to do, and it wouldn't be loud or fast. It would be silent, legal, and irreversible. I showered, put on comfortable clothes, gathered the documents into a gray folder. At 8 a.m. sharp, I called a law firm I'd found online, specialists in banking and family law. "Good morning," I said when they answered. "I need an urgent consultation. I believe financial fraud has been committed using my name, and I need to know my legal options." They gave me an appointment for that same afternoon at 3 p.m. Perfect. I spent the rest of the morning organizing everything. I printed bank statements from the last 2 years. I made copies of all the contracts. I made a detailed list of every deposit I had made into that joint account, every signature I had placed without really understanding what I was authorizing, everything. At 2:30, I left my house with the folder under my arm. The law firm was downtown in a tall office building with huge windows. I took the elevator up to the 12th floor. The receptionist led me to a conference room where a lawyer named Harrison was waiting for me. Dark gray suit, rectangular glasses, serious but kind expression. "Mrs. Megan," he greeted me, shaking my hand. "Tell me what's going on." And I told him everything from the beginning, since Ryan came into my daughter's life, from the humiliations, from the documents I signed without reading, from the bank account they emptied every month, from the condo for which I was a guarantor without really knowing it, from that night at the door where they told me they were only inviting me out of pity. Harrison listened in silence, taking notes in a notepad. When I finished speaking, he reviewed each document carefully, one by one, reading the fine print, checking dates, underlining clauses. After almost an hour, he looked up and stared directly into my eyes. "Mrs. Megan," he said in a firm voice, "you have several options here, and all of them are completely legal." Harrison leaned back in his chair and interlaced his fingers on the table. He looked at me with a mixture of professionalism and something that seemed like genuine empathy. He had seen cases like mine before, that was obvious. But every story of abuse has its own unique bitter flavor. "First, let's talk about the condo," he began, pointing to the mortgage contract. "You appear here as a guarantor and co-signer with joint and several liability. That means if your daughter and son-in-law stop paying..." I looked at the clock. Past midnight. Outside, everything was silent. I got up and walked to the kitchen. I made strong coffee, even though I knew I wouldn't sleep anyway. I poured a cup and sat at the small dining table with all the documents in front of me. And then I started thinking coldly, methodically, like I never had before. If I was the guarantor for that condo, I had legal rights over the contract. If I was a joint holder on the bank account, I could move the money however I wanted. If they had used my name without explaining the real consequences, that was breach of trust, maybe even fraud. I picked up my phone and started searching. Guarantor laws, co-signer rights, how to revoke bank authorizations, how to remove your name from mortgages. I read until 4 a.m., taking notes, highlighting key parts, building a plan in my head. When the sun rose through the kitchen window, I knew exactly what I was going to do. And it wouldn't be loud or fast. It would be silent, legal, and irreversible. I showered, put on comfortable clothes, gathered the documents into a gray folder. At 8 a.m. sharp, I called a law firm I'd found online, specialists in banking and family law. "Good morning," I said when they answered. "I need an urgent consultation. I believe financial fraud has been committed using my name, and I need to know my legal options." They gave me an appointment for that same afternoon at 3 p.m. Perfect. I spent the rest of the morning organizing everything. I printed bank statements from the last 2 years. I made copies of all the contracts. I made a detailed list of every deposit I had made into that joint account, every signature I had placed without really understanding what I was authorizing, everything. At 2:30, I left my house with the folder under my arm. The law firm was downtown in a tall office building with huge windows. I took the elevator up to the 12th floor. The receptionist led me to a conference room where a lawyer named Harrison was waiting for me. Dark gray suit, rectangular glasses, serious but kind expression. "Mrs. Megan," he greeted me, shaking my hand. "Tell me what's going on." And I told him everything from the beginning, since Ryan came into my daughter's life, from the humiliations, from the documents I signed without reading, from the bank account they emptied every month, from the condo for which I was a guarantor without really knowing it, from that night at the door where they told me they were only inviting me out of pity. Harrison listened in silence, taking notes in a notepad. When I finished speaking, he reviewed each document carefully, one by one, reading the fine print, checking dates, underlining clauses. After almost an hour, he looked up and stared directly into my eyes. "Mrs. Megan," he said in a firm voice, "you have several options here, and all of them are completely legal." Harrison leaned back in his chair and interlaced his fingers on the table. He looked at me with a mixture of professionalism and something that seemed like genuine empathy. He had seen cases like mine before, that was obvious. But every story of abuse has its own unique bitter flavor. "First, let's talk about the condo," he began, pointing to the mortgage contract. "You appear here as a guarantor and co-signer with joint and several liability. That means if your daughter and son-in-law stop paying, the bank can come directly to you to collect the entirety of the debt, $280,000 plus interest." I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. "And what can I do?" "Legally, you can request removal as a guarantor if you prove that you signed under incomplete or misleading information. We have evidence here that the implications of the contract were never clearly explained to you. That is a breach of trust. We can initiate a legal process to remove you from the contract. The problem is that takes time, months maybe." "And the quick option?" I asked, because something inside me told me I didn't have months. I needed to act now. Harrison smiled slightly. "The quick option is more drastic. As a co-signer, you have the right to demand the immediate liquidation of the debt or the sale of the property if you believe your assets are at risk. Basically, you can force the cancellation of the loan. If they can't pay the entire loan immediately, the bank executes the guarantee and the condo goes back to the financial institution. They lose the property and you are free of responsibility. Is that legal?" "Completely. It is stipulated in the contract. Clause 17, Section B. Co-signers can demand early liquidation if they believe there is a risk of default. And believe me, with the background you are showing me here, any judge will understand that you have sufficient reasons to protect your assets." I nodded slowly. "What else?" "The joint bank account," he continued, moving on to another document. "Here, the situation is simpler. You are a joint account holder. That means you have full rights over the money deposited. You can withdraw everything, close the account, or simply stop depositing. They cannot legally do anything to prevent it. And the extra card I gave my son-in-law? That card is in your name. You are the primary card holder. You can cancel it whenever you want with a simple call to the bank. You don't need anyone's authorization." I felt something warm begin to grow in my chest. It wasn't hatred. It was power, control, the feeling that for the first time in years, I held the cards. "There is a third thing," Harrison said, pulling out another paper. "This authorization you signed, giving him access to your credit history and allowing him to use your name as collateral. This is more delicate because technically you gave consent. But again, there is evidence that the real implications were not explained to you. We can revoke this authorization immediately with a notarized document. Once revoked, any future use of your name would be illegal. How long will all this take? If you want to move quickly, we can have everything ready in 1 week. Notarized documents, requests to the bank, legal notifications, everything. But I need to know something, Mrs. Megan." He leaned forward and stared at me intently. "Are you sure you want to do this? Because once we start this process, there is no turning back. Your relationship with your daughter is going to change forever. Maybe it will be completely destroyed." I remained silent for a moment. I thought of little Olivia drawing me cards with crayons. I thought of all those nights I stayed up working to give her a better life. I thought of her promises that she would always take care of me. And then I thought of her, that night at her party, looking away while her husband humiliated me at the door. "My relationship with my daughter is already destroyed," I said in a firm voice. "I was just the only one who didn't want to see it, so yes, I am completely sure." Harrison nodded. Very well. Then let's begin. We spent the next 2 hours reviewing every detail. I signed authorizations, I filled out forms, I gave specific instructions on how I wanted to proceed. Harrison explained to me that the entire process would be silent. They wouldn't know anything until the official notifications started coming in, and by then, it would be too late to stop it. I left that building near 6 in the evening. The sun was beginning to set, staining the sky orange and violet. I walked to my car with the empty folder under my arm. All the documents had stayed with Harrison. Now they were legal evidence. Now they were my ammunition. I drove back home feeling something strange. It wasn't exactly happiness. It was something deeper. It was the feeling of having regained my dignity, of having stopped being a victim. For the next 4 days, nothing happened. Olivia didn't call, she didn't write. Absolute silence. I didn't try to contact her either. For the first time in 4 years, I wasn't running after her, begging for attention. And it felt liberating. On the 5th day, I received a call from Harrison. "Mrs. Megan, we have all the documents ready," he said. "Tomorrow, first thing, we are going to file the request for liquidation of the mortgage loan with the bank. We are also formally notifying the revocation of all the authorizations you signed. Are you ready?" "Completely ready," I replied without hesitation. "Good. One more thing. I suggest that this afternoon you go to the bank and withdraw all the money from the joint account. Leave it at 0 and cancel that extra card. Do it before they realize what is happening." I hung up the phone and stared at the wall for a moment. This was the point of no return. Once I did this, the war was officially declared. But there was no longer fear in me, only determination. I changed my clothes. I put on brown pants and a cream-colored blouse. I tied up my hair. I looked in the mirror. The woman staring back at me was no longer the same one who had left that condo humiliated a week ago. This woman had cold eyes and a clenched jaw. This woman had woken up. I arrived at the bank at 4 in the afternoon. It was a large branch with shiny marble floors and freezing air conditioning. I approached the executive service window. "Good afternoon," I greeted in a calm voice. "I need to make a withdrawal from a joint account and cancel an extra card." The executive asked for my ID and checked my account in the system. "Mrs. Megan, I see you have a joint account with a balance of $1,800. How much do you wish to withdraw?" "All of it," I said without hesitation. "I want to close the account completely. And I also need to immediately block the extra card number 5578. She looked at me surprised, but professional. "Are you sure? This operation is irreversible." "Completely sure." She had me sign several documents, closing authorizations, product cancellation, permanent card blocking, everything. 15 minutes later, I left the bank with a check for $1,800 in my purse and the satisfaction of knowing that Olivia was going to try to pay for something with that card and it was going to be rejected. That night, I slept deeply for the first time in weeks, without nightmares, without anxiety, just the peaceful sleep of someone who had finally taken control of her own life. The next morning, while having coffee in my kitchen, my phone rang. It was Harrison. "It's done," he said simply. "The bank received the liquidation request. They are going to notify your daughter within the next 48 hours.
She has 30 days to pay the entirety of the loan or the property will be foreclosed. We also sent the revocations of authorization. Everything is in motion." I hung up and stared at my coffee cup. My hands were trembling slightly. Not from fear, from adrenaline, from anticipation. Now all that remained was to wait for the bomb to drop. 2 days of absolute silence passed. 2 days in which I continued with my normal life as if nothing was happening. I got up early, made my coffee, read the newspaper, went for a walk in the park near my house. Everything with a strange calm, that I myself did not recognize. It was as if a part of me was floating above everything, observing from afar, waiting for the moment when the storm would finally explode. And it exploded on Wednesday afternoon. I was in the kitchen preparing a salad for dinner when my phone started ringing. It was Olivia. I let it ring once, twice, 3 times, call after call. Then the messages started. Dozens of messages. I could see the notifications accumulating on the screen, but I wouldn't know. Not yet. I wanted them to feel the desperation. I wanted them to sweat. After the 10th call, I finally answered. "Hello, Olivia," I said in a quiet, almost bored voice. "Mom, what the hell did you do?" Her voice sounded sharp, desperate, almost hysterical. I had never heard her like that, not even when she was a kid and fell off her bicycle. "Excuse me? I don't understand what you mean." "Don't play dumb. The bank just notified us that we have to pay off the entire condo in 30 days. $280,000. Mom, do you have any idea what you're doing?" I sat down on a kitchen chair and crossed my legs. I looked at my nails with feigned indifference. "Oh, that? Yes. I exercised my right as a co-signer to protect my assets, something completely legal according to the contract that you made me sign. Or did you forget to mention that you were making me responsible for $250,000 worth of debt? That was normal paperwork. All banks ask for guarantors. Don't be ridiculous." Ridiculous? I felt the rage beginning to boil beneath my apparent calm. "Is that the word you chose? How interesting. Because I would say I was ridiculous when I signed papers without reading because I trusted my daughter blindly. I was ridiculous when I kept depositing $600 every month into an account that you emptied for your whims. I was ridiculous when I showed up with homemade American food and you rejected it as if it were garbage." "Mom, this has nothing to do with—" "Nothing to do with it?" I interrupted her with a sharp voice. "It has everything to do with it, Olivia. Or did you already forget what your charming husband told me on Ryan's birthday? We're only inviting you out of pity. Don't get in the way." Do those words sound familiar to you? Because they stuck with me pretty well. There was a silence on the other end of the line. I could hear her ragged breathing. I could picture her standing in her living room, her face red, clutching the phone tightly, searching for something to say. "He didn't mean it that way," she tried to defend him in a lower voice. "He was stressed, had a lot on his mind. He didn't mean it." "Oh, no? And why didn't you say anything? You were standing right there looking me in the eyes while your husband humiliated me at your own door, and you didn't lift a finger to defend me. Not one word, Olivia, not a single word." I didn't want to make a scene." "Sure, you didn't want to make a scene, but you had no problem using my name to put me in debt without explaining the consequences."
You had no problem emptying the account where I deposited money every month, thinking it was for emergencies. You had no problem excluding me from your life little by little until I became a nuisance. Do you know what the saddest thing about all this is, daughter? That I would have given everything for you and you paid me back with betrayal. It's not betrayal. You are my mother. You are supposed to help me. And there it was, the naked, raw truth. To her, I wasn't a person with feelings and dignity. I was a resource, a source of money and favors that she could exploit at will. And when I no longer served her emotionally, she simply discarded me, but kept my financial usefulness active. You're right, I said in a dangerously calm voice. I am your mother, and as your mother, I spent 30 years sacrificing myself for you. I worked double shifts so you would never lack anything. I broke my back to pay for your college. I cried happy tears when you graduated. I gave you everything I had and more. But do you know what I learned too late, Olivia? That being a mother doesn't mean being your slave. It doesn't mean letting you walk all over me. And it definitely doesn't mean continuing to finance your life while you treat me like trash. Mom, please, we can't lose the condo. We have plans. We were going to move next month. We already paid deposits. We bought new furniture. New furniture? I repeated bitterly. With the money you took from our joint account, I suppose? Which, by the way, I already closed. Oh, and before you ask, I also canceled the extra card that Ryan used so generously. He won't be able to buy any more purses or shoes with my credit. What? Now she was shouting. You closed the account, Mom? There are automatic payments linked to that account. Utilities, subscriptions. Too bad. I guess you'll have to use your own money now. What a novel concept, right? I can't believe you're doing this after everything we've done for you. Those words were like a slap in the face. I let out a dry, humorless laugh. Everything you've done for me? Enlighten me, Olivia. Tell me exactly what you've done for me. Invite me to your wedding, where you sat me at the last table with people I didn't even know? Forget my birthday? Exclude me from family dinners? Treat me like a maid when you needed me to watch your dog? Make me feel like my presence was a bother? Please tell me. Hell, I'm eager to know. Silence. A long, uncomfortable silence where I could hear voices in the background. Ryan was there. I could hear him talking fast, nervous. What is she saying? Did she fix everything? Tell her she has to fix this now. Mom. Olivia's voice now sounded more controlled, more calculating, that tone she used when she tried to manipulate me. I know things haven't been perfect. I admit it. But we're family. Family forgives. Family supports each other. We can't let a misunderstanding destroy everything we have. A misunderstanding? I repeated the word slowly. That's what you call it now? How convenient. Do you know what the saddest thing is, Olivia? That if you had come a week ago, if you had called after that night and said, Mom, I'm sorry. Ryan was out of line and I should have defended you. Maybe things would be different. If you had shown even a shred of genuine remorse, maybe I would have reconsidered everything. But you didn't. A whole week passed and not a call, not a message, nothing, until the bank notified you and suddenly you remembered that you have a mother. I was going to call you.
Don't lie. You were never good at lying. You are calling me because you need me, not because you care about me. And that is a difference between real love and self-interest. Fine. You want me to apologize? I'm sorry. Happy? Now fix this. And there it was again. The true face. She couldn't even pretend sincere remorse. She just wanted me to solve her problem, as always. No, I simply said. What? I said no. I am not going to fix anything. You got into this mess. You fix it. You have 30 days to come up with $280,000. That gives you enough time to sell some of those expensive things you bought with my money. Or maybe Ryan's parents can help you. After all, they are always invited to everything. It's not like that. Ryan's parents don't have that money. Nobody we know has that kind of money. Then I guess you'll have to learn to live with the consequences of your decisions, like I had to learn. Mom, please. Now her voice was breaking. She was crying. Please don't do this. We are all we have, you and me. We're family. I felt something inside me painfully tighten, because that was the voice of the child I knew, the girl who cried after nightmares, and I would hug her until she calmed down, the girl who told me I was the best mom in the world. But that child no longer existed. That child had become a woman who used me and despised me in equal measure. No, Olivia, I said in a firm voice, despite the lump in my throat. You decided we weren't family anymore when you allowed me to be treated like trash, when you signed documents behind my back, when you stole my peace of mind. I'm just a bothersome old woman who was invited out of pity, remember? Those were your exact words. So now this bothersome old woman is going to do what she should have done a long time ago. Take care of herself. I hung up the phone before she could answer. My hands were shaking. My heart was pounding, but I didn't cry. There were no tears left for them. I left the phone on the kitchen table and stared at it, as if it were a bomb about to explode. I knew it would ring again, and I was right. 30 seconds later, the screen lit up again. Olivia! I declined the call. She called again. I declined again and again and again. After the 6th call, I simply turned off the phone. The silence that followed was strange, heavy, but also liberating. I got up and walked to the living room window. Outside, it was getting dark. The city lights began to turn on one by one, like concrete fireflies. People were returning to their homes after work. Life was taking its normal course for everyone, but me. Because I had just crossed a line I never thought I would cross. I went to my bedroom and opened the nightstand drawer. There, I kept a small wooden box inlaid with mother of pearl that had belonged to my mother Ruth. Inside were old letters, yellowed photographs, and a worn notebook where she wrote down her thoughts. I opened it carefully, as if it were a sacred object. I turned the pages slowly. My mother's handwriting was firm and elegant, even though she had only studied up to the 6th grade. I read some random entries. Today, Megan turned 15. I made her a cake with the little I had. She looked at me with those eyes full of gratitude that break my heart. I wish I could give her more. I wish I could give her the world. Another entry from years later. Megan married David today. He is a good man. I can see it in his eyes. He will take care of her. He will respect her. That is the only thing a mother can ask for.
That her daughter finds someone who values her. And one more, written only months before her death. I am tired. My body no longer responds as it used to, but I am not afraid to die. I did what I had to do. I gave Megan the tools to be strong. Now I just hope she uses them when she needs them. I closed the notebook carefully and held it against my chest. I am using them, Mom, I whispered into the empty air. I'm sorry it took so long. I didn't sleep well that night. Not out of regret, but out of adrenaline. My mind wouldn't stop reviewing the conversation with Olivia. Every word, every tone, every pathetic justification. And the more I thought about it, the clearer I saw the truth. I had allowed all of this. I had been an accomplice to my own humiliation out of fear of being alone, out of fear of losing the only daughter I had. But what was the point of clinging to someone who had already let go of you a long time ago? The next morning, I turned on the phone. I had 53 messages, 28 missed calls, most from Olivia, but there were also some from unknown numbers that were probably Ryan using other people's phones. I didn't open any messages. I didn't listen to any voicemails. I simply blocked both numbers and left the phone on the table. At 10 in the morning, my condo doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole, and there was Olivia. She looked terrible. Deep, dark circles under her eyes, disheveled hair, shirt wrinkled as if she had slept in it. She was alone, without Ryan. How curious that he wouldn't come to face me. I didn't open the door. Mom, I know you're there, she said in a hoarse voice. Your car is in the parking lot. Please open up. We need to talk. I stayed silent on the other side, my back against the wall, listening. Mom, please, I can't lose the condo. You can't do this to me. I'm your daughter, your only daughter. Her voice broke. I'm begging you, open the door. Part of me wanted to open it. That maternal part that never completely dies, no matter how much you are hurt. That part that remembers changing diapers at 3 in the morning and bandaging scraped knees and celebrating every small achievement as if it were a miracle. But another part of me, the part that had finally woken up, knew that if I opened that door, everything would have been in vain. Mom, Ryan says he's going to talk to you, that he's going to apologize, that it was all a misunderstanding. Just give me a chance to fix this. Ryan says they weren't even his own words. She couldn't even articulate a genuine apology without her husband dictating what to say. I heard her slump against the door. I could imagine her sitting on the hallway floor with her head in her hands. She stayed there for almost an hour, talking, begging, crying, and I listened to every word without moving, without opening, without giving in. Finally, she left. I heard her footsteps walking away down the corridor, the sound of the elevator, the silence that returned. I sat down on the sofa and let out a long sigh. My hands were trembling slightly, not from fear, but from the accumulated tension. I had managed to resist. I had managed to stand firm, and that was harder than I ever imagined. The following days were a strange mixture of calm and storm. Olivia tried everything. She came 3 more times to knock on my door. She waited for me in the parking lot one morning, but I simply turned around and walked for 2 hours until she got tired of waiting. She sent me flowers with a card that read, "Forgive me, Mom. I love you."
I let them wither at the entrance of the building without touching them. Ryan also tried to contact me. He sent me a voice message on a messaging app before I blocked his number. His voice sounded forcibly sweet. Artificial. "Megan, this is Ryan. Look, I think things were misunderstood the other day. I didn't mean to sound rude. I was very stressed with the party organization and said things without thinking. You are part of this family and we appreciate you very much. We can resolve this like adults, right? Call me when you can." I deleted the audio before finishing listening to it. He also wrote me a long message. "Megan, I understand you're upset, but this is getting out of control. It's not fair that you punish Olivia for something I said. She loves you. I also appreciate you, even if you don't believe it. We can start over. We can be a real family. But you need to take the first step and cancel that craziness with the bank. It's destroying our lives. Please think about Olivia." The manipulation was so obvious that it was laughable. First, he tried to victimize himself, then appealed to my maternal feelings, and finally blamed me for the destruction they themselves had caused. It was a classic narcissistic manipulator's handbook. I did not respond. On Friday of that week, 2 weeks after that night at their door, I received a call from Harrison. "Mrs. Megan, I have news," he said professionally. "The bank confirmed the execution of the process. Your daughter has 18 days remaining to liquidate the loan, or the property will be foreclosed. Your daughter's lawyers also contacted me trying to negotiate. They want to know if you would be willing to withdraw the request in exchange for them paying you a certain monthly amount." "How much are they offering? $200 monthly?" I laughed, a bitter, dry laugh. $200, less than half of what I voluntarily deposited into that account that they emptied every month. That's their idea of a fair negotiation? Obviously, it's a ridiculous offer, but legally, I have to inform you. Tell them no. Tell them there is no negotiation possible. Either they pay everything in the next 18 days or they lose the condo. There is no middle ground. Understood. There's something else. Your daughter filed a lawsuit alleging that you are acting with malice and that your decision has no legal basis. It's a desperate attempt, but I had to inform you. I felt the rage rise in my throat. She is suing me? Yes, but don't worry. Her case is weak. We have all the documentation proving that you signed under incomplete information and that you have every right to protect your assets. It won't succeed, but it does mean that this could drag on a little longer in court. Let her do it, I said in a cold voice. Let her spend money on lawyers that she doesn't have. Let her sink deeper. I don't care anymore. I hung up and stared at the phone.
My own daughter was suing me. The child I raised, the child I gave my life for. She was taking me to court because I finally said no. That night, I took out a bottle of wine that I had been keeping in the kitchen for months. I poured myself a large glass and sat on the balcony of my condo. The air was cool. The city shone below like an ocean of lights. And I felt strangely at peace because for the first time in years, I wasn't begging. I wasn't waiting. I wasn't being invisible. I was being seen. Even if it was as the villain of their story, even if they hated me, even if they sued me, at least now they knew I existed. I took a sip of wine and raised the glass to the night sky. To you, Mom, I whispered, for teaching me that a woman who respects herself never begs for love, not even from her own blood.
The following days were strangely calm, like the silence that comes after a storm when everything is destroyed. But at least there were no more thunderclaps. I established a new routine. I got up early, made coffee, read a book on the balcony as the sun rose. Simple things I had forgotten to do because I was always worried about Olivia, always thinking about how to get closer to her, how to let her know that I was still there. Not anymore. One afternoon, almost 10 days after Olivia's last visit to my door, I decided to do something I had been putting off for years. I drove to the outskirts of the city, to the neighborhood where I grew up, to the house my mother Ruth had left me as an inheritance. It was a small one-story house with faded yellow walls and a terracotta-colored tile roof. The front garden was full of mint plants that grew wild and free. The wooden porch, where we used to sit and drink coffee, needed a coat of paint, but was still sturdy. The young couple who rented it kept everything decent. They paid the $700 promptly every month. They never caused any problems. I parked in front of the house and stayed there, sitting in the car for a long time, just looking, remembering. This house was where my mother had lived her last years. It was where I had grown up, where I had learned what it meant to work hard, where I had seen my mother return every night with hands cracked from cleaning other people's houses, but always with her head held high. I took out my phone and dialed the number of the woman who rented the house. She answered on the third ring. "Mrs. Megan, what a surprise! Is everything okay?" "Hello, Sarah. Yes, everything is fine. Look, I'm calling because I need to ask you something. How quickly could you look for another place if I needed the house back?" There was a pause. "Are you going to sell us the house? Because if so, my husband and I would be very interested. We've talked about it several times." That option had not even crossed my mind. I hadn't thought about selling. "Well, let me ask you, how much could you offer?" "We have saved about $40,000. I know it's not much, but we could get a loan for the rest. The house is valued at about $90,000, according to what we saw online." $90,000. It wasn't a fortune, but it wasn't a small amount either. And suddenly, an idea began to form in my head. A crazy idea. A liberating idea. "Let me think about it," I told her. "I'll call you in a few days." I hung up and kept looking at the house through the car window. What was I doing living in that small, sad downtown condo when I could be here, in the place where my mother raised me, in the place that had history, that had a soul, that had peace? I returned to my condo with that idea swirling in my head. $90,000 for the house, plus the savings I had in the bank, plus my monthly pension. I could move to a more affordable place. I could live peacefully without so much financial pressure. I could finally breathe. That night, I called Harrison. "Mrs. Megan, how are you? I was just about to call you. 20 days have passed since the notification. Your daughter has 10 days left to liquidate the loan." "And what are her lawyers saying?" "They're trying to negotiate extensions with the bank, but I think it will be difficult. The policies are clear. Either there is full payment or there is foreclosure." "Have you had any more contact with your daughter?" "Attempts on her part. I haven't responded to anything.
But I have a different question. If I wanted to sell a property I own, how long would the whole process take? It depends. If you find a buyer quickly and everything is in order, maybe 2 or 3 months. Are you thinking of selling? Maybe. Or maybe moving in there. I still don't know.
I'm just evaluating options. Well, if you need legal advice for anything, you know where to find me. I spent that whole night making calculations, numbers on napkins, budgets in my old notebook. If I sold the house, I had enough money to buy something smaller in another city. I could start over, far from here, far from the memories, far from Olivia and Ryan. Or I could move into my mother's house and rent out this condo. The options were so many, and for the first time in years, I was the one deciding. On day 25, after the bank notification, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me respond. Mrs. Megan? It was an older woman's voice, formal, educated. Yes, who is speaking? This is Glenda, Ryan's mother. Excuse me for bothering you. I got your number from a mutual friend. I need to speak with you urgently. It's about my son and your daughter. I felt my jaw tense up. Ryan's mother, the woman who had always been at all the family dinners while I was excluded, the one who appeared in all the photos with her non-existent grandchild while I disappeared from the narrative. I have nothing to discuss with you, I said coldly. Please, just listen to me for 5 minutes. Afterward, if you want to hang up on me, you have every right. But let me explain something that perhaps you don't know. Something in her tone made me hesitate. She didn't sound arrogant or manipulative. She sounded tired, defeated even. 5 minutes, I said. Thank you. Look, I know you think we are a perfect family, that we have always been on Ryan's side in everything, and you are partly right. I raised my son to be strong, independent, successful. But I also raised him with the wrong values. I taught him that money is everything, that marrying well is more important than marrying for love, that image is worth more than feelings. I remained silent, letting for talk. When Ryan met Olivia, I was happy. Not because she was a good woman, which she is, but because she had a good job, because she came from less, and that meant she was going to value the lifestyle we could offer him. I pushed that marriage. I planted the idea in my son's head that you were a nuisance, that mothers are always a problem, that it was better to keep you away. I felt the rage begin to simmer in my chest. And why are you telling me all this now? What do you want? Me to withdraw the demand from the bank? Me to forgive your son and go back to how things were before? No, she said, her voice cracking. I don't expect anything from you. I just want you to know that I was wrong, that I destroyed something I shouldn't have destroyed. Because now that everything is falling apart, now that Olivia and Ryan are desperate, now that they have come to beg me to lend them money that I don't have, I finally see the monster I helped create. You don't have the money? I asked with genuine curiosity. No, my husband and I are retired. We live on a pension. The house where we live still has a mortgage. We don't have $280,000. No one in our family has that amount. And believe me, Ryan has called every relative we have begging for help. Something inside me felt strangely satisfied with that information. It wasn't exactly joy, it was justice. They thought they could use my name, my credit, my money, and that I would simply accept it because we were family. They never calculated that I could say enough.
Mrs. Megan, Glinda continued, I don't know you. I don't know what kind of woman you are, but from the little I've seen in these days of desperation, I can say that you raised a daughter who had everything she needed.
education, opportunities, and she chose to waste that. She chose to bite the hand that fed her. That is not your fault. It's her fault. And it's also my fault for influencing my son to treat you that way. Why are you telling me all this? I asked, my voice tired. Because someone has to apologize to you, and that someone is me. Ryan still doesn't understand what he did. Olivia still thinks she's the victim, but I do understand. And I know that no apology will repair the damage, but I still needed to tell you. There was a long silence. I could hear her ragged breathing on the other end. Maybe she was crying. Your apology changes nothing, I finally said. The bank is going to foreclose on the condo in 5 days, if there is no full payment. That is out of my hands now. I know, and I'm not asking you to change your decision. I just wanted you to know the truth, that not everyone in this story is bad, that some were just foolish, and that sometimes we realize it too late. She hung up before I could reply. I stayed there sitting with the phone in my hand, staring at the screen that went dark again. Ryan's mother had just apologized, not to manipulate me, not to change my decision, just because she needed to do it. And for the first time in weeks, I felt something akin to understanding. Not forgiveness, but understanding. The damage was done. There was no going back. But at least now I knew someone understood why I had done it. The last 5 days before the deadline were the strangest of this whole nightmare. There was a tense calm in the air, like when you know a storm is approaching, but you still don't know how destructive it will be. I continued with my routine. Coffee in the mornings, walks in the park, reading on the balcony, but always with the phone nearby, waiting. Harrison called me on day 28. Mrs. Megan, your daughter's lawyers made one last offer. They proposed that you accept a payment plan. They would pay $5,000 monthly for the next 50 months until the entire debt is liquidated. In exchange, you would withdraw the request for immediate foreclosure. I did the math mentally. $5,000 for 50 months? $250,000. Mathematically, it checked out. But there was a huge problem with that proposal. Harrison, where are they going to get $5,000 monthly if they don't even have the full $250,000 now? Olivia earns well, but not that well. And as far as I know, Ryan quit his job 6 months ago. Exactly my point. It's a promise they can't keep. In 3 or 4 months, they will stop paying, and you will be in the same situation but worse, because you will have lost time, and they will have continued living in that condo without consequences. Then the answer is no. I thought so. I will let them know. Mrs. Megan, get ready. In 2 days, the bank is going to execute the foreclosure. Your daughter is going to lose the condo, and she will probably try to contact you in more desperate ways. Are you ready for that? As ready as I can be, I replied, although I wasn't sure if it was true. That night, I couldn't sleep well. Not out of guilt, but out of anticipation. I knew what was coming was going to be brutal. Olivia was not the kind of person who accepts defeat quietly. And I was right. On day 29 at 7 in the morning, someone started ringing my condo doorbell insistently, over and over, without stopping. I got out of bed, my heart pounding, and looked through the peephole. It was Olivia. Ryan was with her. Both of them looked terrible. She had several days of stubble, deep dark circles under her eyes, wrinkled clothes. He had unwashed hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, no makeup, wearing gray sweatpants, as if she had just gotten out of bed. "Mom, open the door," Olivia shouted, hitting it with her fist. "I know you're in there. Open up." I didn't open it. I stayed on the other side with my back against the wall, breathing deeply, trying to stay calm. "Megan, please." Now it was Ryan speaking. His voice sounded hoarse, desperate. We need to talk. Tomorrow we lose everything. Everything. Do you understand? We are going to be out on the street. We won't have anywhere to live. Olivia shouted. We signed a lease to leave this condo next month. We already paid a deposit. We bought furniture. We had plans. And you are destroying them because of a tantrum? A tantrum? She called my dignity a tantrum. It's not a tantrum, Olivia, I shouted back from inside. I couldn't stay quiet anymore. It's a consequence. Something you never learned because I always rescued you from everything. Then rescue me now one last time. I swear we will change. We will include you in everything. We will value you. But you need to do this for me one last time. How many last times have I heard that phrase in my life, Olivia? How many times did I give you one more chance? How many times did I forgive things I shouldn't have forgiven, and it always ended up in the same place, invisible, used, despised? Megan, I apologize, Ryan shouted. What I said to you that night was awful. I admit it. I was angry about other things, and I took it out on you, but I didn't mean it. I didn't want to hurt you. Lie, I yelled with all the strength I had. Of course you meant it. You had been treating me like trash for 4 years. That night you just said out loud what you always thought. And the worst part is that Olivia let you. She let you humiliate me. She chose your side again and again. I heard sobs on the other side. Ryan was crying. Olivia was crying. But I no longer felt compassion. Those tears came too late. After years of contempt, after months of being treated like a nuisance, after using my name to put themselves in debt without my real knowledge, after emptying the account where I deposited my money with so much effort. Mom, Olivia's voice was now barely a broken whisper. If you do this, if you let the bank take the condo, I'm going to be left with a destroyed credit history. I won't be able to rent anything decent. I won't be able to buy another property for years, maybe decades. My professional life is going to suffer. Everything I built is going to collapse. Welcome to consequences, I said in a cold voice. I built my life brick by brick, working double shifts, cleaning, sewing, sacrificing myself. And I built it to give you a future. But you chose to destroy my present. So now you are going to learn what I always knew, that nothing is free in this life, that actions have a price, and that when you betray the person who gave you everything, you end up losing everything. You can't be so cruel, Ryan sobbed. We're family. Family? I let that word float in the air for a moment. Family doesn't use you. Family doesn't humiliate you. Family doesn't make you feel like you are in the way. You decided I wasn't family a long time ago. I'm just accepting your decision. Please. Olivia was hitting the door in desperation. I will pay you every penny.
I will get a second job, whatever it takes, but don't do this to me. I'm not doing anything to you that you didn't do to yourself. You used my name. You signed contracts without explaining them to me. You emptied my account. You excluded me from your life. And when I finally reacted, when I finally said enough, what did you do? You sued me. Your own mother. So don't come now asking for mercy when you didn't have any for me. There was a long, heavy silence on the other side of the door. I only heard ragged breaths and choked sobs. Then Olivia spoke again, but this time her voice was different. She was no longer pleading. There was something dark in her tone. Fine, she said slowly. If that's what you want, if you want to destroy me, if you want me to lose everything, go ahead. But I want you to know something, Mom. This doesn't end here. I'm going to remember this for the rest of my life. I'm going to remember that when I needed you most, you turned your back on me. That you chose revenge over your own daughter. And when you are truly old, when you are sick, when you need help, I'm going to remember this day. And I'm going to give you exactly what you are giving me now. Nothing. Those words pierced me like knives, because they were the final confirmation of what I always suspected. To her, I only had value as long as I was useful. And now that I no longer served her purposes, she was threatening me with abandonment, as if she hadn't spent the last 4 years emotionally abandoning me, as if her future absence were a worse punishment than her present contempt. "Olivia," I said in a trembling but firm voice, "I'm already old. I'm already alone. I already know what it's like for you to abandon me. I've been living that abandonment for 4 years. So your threat doesn't scare me. I lost my daughter a long time ago. I just took a long time to realize it. I heard footsteps walking away, the sound of the elevator, the doors closing. Silence. I let myself fall to the floor with my back against the door. The tears finally came, not from sadness, but from liberation. It was over. Everything was over. There were no more pleas, there was no more manipulation, there were no more false hopes of reconciliation. I stayed there, sitting on the floor of my living room, for I don't know how long, crying silently, letting out years of accumulated pain, years of feeling small, years of begging for love, years of being invisible. When I finally got up, I walked to the balcony. The sun was rising. A new day was beginning, and for the first time in years, that new day was mine alone. I picked up my phone and wrote a message to Harrison. "Let the bank proceed. No more negotiations. It's over." His reply came 5 minutes later. "Understood. Tomorrow, at 9 in the morning, the foreclosure will be formally executed. The condo returns to the bank. Your name is cleared of all responsibility. You did it, Megan." I closed my eyes and breathed deeply. I had done it. I had gotten my life back. I had recovered my dignity. And although it hurt, although the price had been losing my daughter forever, at least now I could look myself in the mirror without feeling ashamed. Day 30 dawned gray. Heavy clouds covered the sky, as if the city itself knew something important was about to end. I woke up early, at 6 in the morning, although I had barely slept 3 hours. I made coffee and sat on the balcony, wrapped in a beige blanket.
The air was cold. November always brought that chill that gets into your bones and won't let go. At 9 o'clock, on the dot, just as Harrison had said, I received the official notification from the bank, a formal email with legal language that basically said, "The property located at 5th Avenue, number 243, apartment 502, has been foreclosed due to lack of payment. The occupants have 72 hours to voluntarily vacate or forced eviction will be proceeded with." Attached was a PDF document with official seals and digital signatures. I read it 3 times, every word, every clause. And when I finished, I closed the email and stared at the blank screen of my phone. It was done. After 30 days of silent war, after tears and pleas, after being called cruel and vindictive, it was done. Olivia and Ryan had lost the condo. I didn't feel joy nor sadness, only a strange emptiness. Like when you finish reading a very long book and you don't know what to do with the time you used to dedicate to reading it. I got dressed calmly, black pants, gray sweater, comfortable shoes. I tied my hair in a low bun. I looked in the mirror. The wrinkles around my eyes seemed deeper. The fatigue of the last few weeks was evident on my face. But there was also something different. My eyes no longer had that permanent look of pleading. There was no longer that constant anxiety of waiting for someone to validate me. There was something firmer there, something that resembled peace. I decided to go out. I couldn't stay locked up in the condo all day thinking about what had just happened. I drove aimlessly for a while,
Until, without realizing it, I ended up in the same place as always, in front of my mother's house on the outskirts of the city. This time, I got out of the car. I walked through the front garden, feeling the mint plants crunch under my shoes. The fresh green scent filled my lungs. I went up the 3 steps of the wooden porch that creaked under my weight. I sat in the old rocking chair that my mother had bought at a flea market decades ago. From there, I could see the quiet street, the trees moving in the wind, an elderly lady walking her dog, a child on a bicycle, the simple, slow life of a neighborhood where nothing urgent ever happened. And I wondered why I had spent the last few years living downtown in that small, noisy condo when I could have been here, in this place that smelled of my childhood, of my mother, of more honest times. I took out my phone and called Sarah, the tenant. "Mrs. Megan, how are you?" "Good. Sarah, look, I've been thinking about what we talked about the other day about selling the house. Have you made a decision?" "Yes, I'm not going to sell you the house." I heard a disappointed sigh on the other end, but I continued. "But I'm going to give you 3 months' notice to find another place. I'm going to move in here. I need this space. I need this place." There was a pause. "I understand. 3 months is enough time. Thank you for letting us know in advance. You've been a good landlady all these years." I hung up and kept looking at the house, my house, the place where I was going to start over. At 66 years old, I was going back to the beginning, but this time not as a scared little girl, but as a woman who finally knew her worth. The phone vibrated. A message from an unknown number? I opened it cautiously. "I hope you're happy. We're left with nothing. No condo, no credit, no future. All because of your selfishness. But don't worry. Someday you're going to need something from us. And that day you're going to remember what you did." It was from Ryan. I recognized his writing style, full of drama and victimhood. I didn't respond. I simply blocked the number. I no longer had the energy for his manipulations. 5 minutes later, another message arrived. Another unknown number. This time it was longer. "Mom, today we were handed the official notification. We have 3 days to get our things out of the condo. 3 days to dismantle the life we built, the furniture we bought, the plans we had, all destroyed. And the worst part is that you don't even feel remorse. You think this is justice, but it's just cruelty. You are a bitter woman who couldn't stand to see her daughter happy, who couldn't stand that I chose my husband over you, because that's what really bothers you, right? That you are no longer the center of my world, that you can no longer control me. Well, congratulations, you got your revenge, but you lost your daughter forever. I hope it's worth sleeping alone for the rest of your life, knowing that you were the one who destroyed this family." I read the entire message without emotion. Every word was designed to hurt me, to make me feel guilty, to manipulate me one last time. But it no longer worked because I knew the truth. I didn't destroy anything. I just stopped holding up something that was already broken. I wrote a response, the first and last one I was going to give them. "Olivia, I didn't destroy your life. I just stopped funding it. I didn't ruin your future. I just protected mine. I didn't abandon you. You abandoned me years ago when you chose contempt over respect, when you chose convenience over honesty, when you chose to use my name without my real knowledge. I gave you 30 years of my life. I gave you everything I had, and you paid me back with humiliation? So no, I don't regret it. I don't feel guilty. I only feel relief that I can finally live without caring people who don't value me. I wish you the best. Seriously, I hope you learn from this. I hope you grow. I hope someday you understand that love is not about using people until they are no longer useful. But that is no longer my problem. Take care." I sent the message and blocked that number too. I turned off the phone completely. I no longer wanted to know more. I no longer needed to know more.
I stayed sitting on that porch for hours, watching the sun move across the sky, watching the shadows change places, watching life continue, with or without drama, with or without Olivia, with or without the pain of the last few weeks. When it started to get dark, I went inside the house. Sarah had left everything immaculate. The floors shone, the windows were clean, it smelled clean and of lavender. I walked through the rooms empty of furniture but full of memories. The room where I slept as a child, the kitchen where my mother prepared coffee every morning, the living room where we sat to watch television on that old appliance that took 5 minutes to turn on. And I realized something important. This house never felt empty, even if no one was here, because it was full of true love. The love of a woman who worked until her hands were destroyed so that her daughter would have opportunities. The love that asks nothing in return. The love that does not manipulate or control or humiliate. That was the kind of love I had given Olivia, and that was the kind of love she had despised. But that no longer defined me because I was more than just Olivia's mother. I was Megan, daughter of Ruth, a 66-year-old woman who had survived loss and betrayal and years of feeling invisible, and who had finally found the strength to say no more. I left the house and locked the door. I went back to my car. I drove back to my condo with the windows open, letting the cold wind hit my face. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I felt light, as if I had released a weight that I had been carrying on my shoulders for so long that I no longer even remembered how it felt to walk without it. That night, when I got home, I prepared a simple dinner. Pasta with tomato sauce, toast, a glass of red wine. I sat at my small dining table and ate slowly, savoring every bite, without rushing, without anxiety, without being dependent on the phone, waiting for someone to need me. And when I finished, I washed the dishes, turned off the lights, put on my pajamas, and got into bed. I closed my eyes, and for the first time in 30 days, I slept deeply, without nightmares, without guilt, without fear, just the peaceful sleep of someone who had finally chosen her own peace over the comfort of others. 3 months later, everything had changed. It was February, and the heat was beginning to arrive with that intensity that makes you seek shade at any time of day. I was now completely settled in my mother's house. I had sold most of the furniture from my previous condo and bought new things for this place. Things that I chose, things that I liked. An olive-clean sofa, white linen curtains, an old wooden table that I found at an antique market and restored with my own hands. The front garden was now better cared for. I pruned the mint plants every week. I planted soft pink roses in the corners. I painted the porch white and replaced the old rocking chair with a new one, but in the same style. This place had become my sanctuary, my refuge, my true home. I had established a simple and comforting routine. I woke up with the sun. I made coffee in the Italian coffee maker that had belonged to my mother. I went out to the porch to read while drinking my first cup of the day. Then I would walk through the neighborhood for an hour. I greeted the neighbors who already knew me, the lady with the dog, the man who sold homemade bread from his house, the children going to school. In the afternoons, I sometimes cooked. Recipes I had forgotten, recipes my mother taught me as a child. Chicken pot pie, apple crumble. I cooked not because someone asked me to, but because it gave me pleasure, because the smell of food filled the house and made me feel alive. In the evening, I read or watched old movies. Sometimes I called a distant cousin with whom I had reconnected after years.
We talked about life, about memories, about nothing important, and that was enough. I hadn't heard anything directly from Olivia, but once, walking downtown, when I went to run errands at the bank, I saw her from afar. She was leaving an office building. She looked thinner, more tired. The suit she was wearing was the same one I knew from 2 years ago. She no longer had that air of confidence that always characterized her. She walked with her shoulders slumped, looking at her phone, completely absorbed in her own world. I hid behind a pole, not because I was afraid, but because I didn't want the drama. I didn't want the confrontation. I didn't want to break the peace that had cost me so much to build. I saw her get on a public bus. She, who always boasted about her latest model car, the car she probably had to sell to pay off debts.
I felt something. It wasn't exactly satisfaction, nor was it sadness. It was something more like acceptance. She was living the consequences of her decisions, and I was living the peace of mind. One afternoon in March, I received a call from Harrison. "Mrs. Megan, how are you? It's been a while since we spoke." "Very well, Harrison. Settled in my new house. Peaceful. And you? How are things going?" "Good. I'm calling because the entire legal matter is finally closed. The lawsuit your daughter filed was completely dismissed. The judge ruled in your favor on all counts. Your name is completely clean. There is no debt associated with you. You are officially free." Officially free. Those words sounded like music. Thank you, Harrison, for everything, for guiding me through this, for not judging me. There's nothing to thank me for. You did the right thing, and I hope you can now enjoy your life without that weight on your shoulders. I hung up and stared at the garden through the living room window. Free. After years of carrying responsibilities that were not mine, after years of feeling tied to people who emotionally drained me, I was finally free. That same week, something unexpected happened. I was watering the garden plants when I saw a car pull up in front of my house. It was a modest white car. Glenda, Ryan's mother, got out of it. She was carrying a bouquet of yellow flowers in her hands. I tensed up immediately. I didn't know what to expect, but she walked towards me with slow, almost timid steps. "Megan," she said softly, "excuse me for coming unannounced. I know you might not want to see me, but I needed to do this." "What is it?" I asked, without hostility, but also without warmth. "To bring you this." She held out the flowers. "And to tell you that you were right in everything. My son and your daughter are now living in a small apartment in an affordable area. Olivia had to get a second job. Ryan had to go back to work. They are struggling. They are paying the consequences. And you know what the saddest thing is? That they are finally learning." Learning what? That life owes them nothing. That they cannot use people. That respect is earned, not demanded. Ryan called me crying last week. He told me that now he understands everything you did for Olivia because he is working 10 hours a day and he barely has enough to cover expenses. And he is only now realizing what it means to sacrifice yourself for someone. "I'm glad they are learning," I said sincerely. "Really, I don't wish them ill. I just wanted them to understand." They understood. Too late, perhaps, but they understood. Glenda looked me directly in the eyes. "Do you think you can ever forgive them?" I thought about it for a long moment. "I don't know. Maybe, but not now. I need to heal now. I need to live for myself. For the first time in decades, I need to think about Megan before thinking about everyone else." She nodded with understanding. "That's fair. Very fair. I just wanted you to know that if someday in the future you decide to give them another chance, I think they will value it now. But if you don't, I understand that too. No one has the right to ask you for more than you've already given." She said goodbye with a brief hug and left. I stayed there, standing with the bouquet of flowers in my hands. I put them in a vase with water and placed them on the dining room table. They were pretty, simple, like this new life I was building.
The following weeks were peaceful. I started taking pottery classes at a community center near home. I met other women my age, some widows like me, others divorced, others simply alone, but all with stories, all with scars, all learning to live again. One afternoon, while shaping a clay cup on the wheel, one of them asked me, "Megan, do you have children?" The question caught me by surprise. Before, I would have automatically replied, "Yes, a daughter," but this time I thought better of it. "I had a daughter," I said slowly, "but we no longer have a relationship. It was painful but necessary." She nodded without judgment. Sometimes biological family is not real family. Sometimes real family is the one we choose, the one that respects us, the one that values us. She was right. And I was beginning to build that chosen family with these women from the workshop, with my neighbors, with my cousin, with the people who treated me with dignity. One evening in April, almost 6 months after everything that had happened, I was sitting on the porch watching the stars when a deep peace completely flooded me. It wasn't euphoric happiness. It was something better. It was contentment. It was the feeling of being exactly where I should be, of having made the right decisions, even if they were the hardest ones. I thought of my mother, Ruth. How proud she would have been to see me now, how she would have applauded my bravery, how she would have said, "That's how you do it, daughter. That's how you defend your dignity." And I thought of all the women who are going through the same thing I went through. The ones who are being used, the ones who are being despised, the ones who are begging for love from people who don't value them. And I wanted to tell them something. I wanted them to know that there is a way out, that there is life after the pain, that it is never too late to choose yourself. Because if anyone out there is experiencing something similar to what I lived, if someone feels invisible in their own family, if someone is carrying people who only look for them when they need them, I want you to know this. You are not selfish for setting boundaries. You are not cruel for protecting your peace. You are not a bad person for saying, "Enough is enough." You deserve respect. You deserve true love. You deserve to be valued. And if you have to distance yourself from your own blood to find your peace of mind, it's okay. It's more than okay. Because at the end of the day, the person you have to live with every day of your life is yourself. And you deserve to be able to look in the mirror without shame. I lost my daughter, that is true. But I found myself. And it turned out that was worth much more than I ever imagined. And that, my dears, is the full story from Grandma Megan's porch swing. If this touched your heart, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell for more stories of strength and self-love. I love you all. Grandma Megan, out!